Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guest with our host, Christina Nichman.
Hello, this is your host, Christina from Savvy Radio. Thank you for joining us for our Heartbeat of the World series, where we're bringing you some of the top experts around the globe to talk about some of the greatest challenges facing our country and the world. Our guest today is Perry Marshall, author of Evolution 2.0, Breaking the Deadlock Between Darwin and Design. Evolution 2.0 is a remarkable, meticulous dissection of the experimental evidence on evolution. We delve deeply into this, and you can find out more about his book and his $5 million Evolution 2.0 prize at naturalcode.org. Hi, Perry. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio and our Heartbeat of the World segment. How are you this afternoon or morning for you?
Good morning from Chicago. It's a beautiful fall morning right now.
Yeah. What is it over there? Right here, we are kicking with like some 70-something degrees in New York City. Fabulous being right in the middle here, close to November. It's really amazing to have this sort of weather. How is it over there?
It's the same. I've been riding my bike and enjoying fabulous weather. So,
wow.
While it lasts. In fact, I have a convertible. I might even ride with the top down today.
Oh, yeah. Today is that type of day, go out there, get some exercise and get the blood going. Well, everyone, we're here today with Marshall, an American online marketing strategist. We've had many of them on, but you are a top-notch in your field, entrepreneur and author of several books, including a bestseller, Evolution 2.0, Breaking the Deadlock Between Darwin and Design. It totally sounds like a fascinating subject, by the way. Before we go to sharing all the tidbits of your background and some tips for our audience marketing-wise, share with our audience how you came to working in marketing and creating eventually your book.
Well, I got laid off from my job when I was an engineer, and my wife was 3 months pregnant, and I got thrown into the sales swamp, and I had to learn how to swim.
Wow.
And after a couple of years of grueling, bologna sandwiches and ramen soup and all the rest, I discovered direct marketing, and I realized, hey, this is a scientific process, and you can measure it, and you can test it, and you can improve it. And so direct marketing was really the engineer's version of sales. And, then the internet exploded. And so unwittingly, I became the author of the world's best-selling book on internet advertising.
Wow. It's interesting, Perry, and we've had a lot of guests who've had similar stories to you where maybe a catastrophe, crisis, or loss of job has put them on a whole new path. And one they never would have probably picked for themselves, but one that was brought amazing opportunities and gifts in a way that you could use your gifts in a way you didn't expect. And that looks like you found a perfect niche for yourself. When you first entered into this realm, were you like, wow, what am I doing here? Or were you excited to be on this new journey?
Well, I was really excited, but I quickly found out that this thing was a whole lot harder than I thought it would be. The sales guys would come into our office and I go, those guys don't look very smart. I could do that, but hey, man, it's a highly refined game. And, I came to respect the guys that can make it work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I thought. And I'm sure a lot of people, when they get started, think, hey, there's going to be a piece of cake. And what I thought, I used what I did in corporate for 20 years, finance, and said, hey, I'll just do a go at this and I should be fabulous. It was my ex-boss who said, you make a consulting business. You should be doing rocking and rolling with income and such. And my first goal was $100,000 in 4 months. Well, I made 300. Not quite the goal I'd hoped to make, but it goes to show, it's not quite as simple as you expect. What was your number one lesson from takeaway? Because you said the first couple of years you struggled with sales, and then you found direct marketing, and you found a way to make it work for yourself. What did you learn along the way that made it start working for you?
Well, I learned this thing, which now is a bit of a household word, but barely existed then, which it was called copywriting. And it was, you can put words on paper, and what you have done is you have lit a little tiny micro atomic bomb. And when you put that in front of the right person in the right context, backed by the right product, you can really make things happen. And so I started to hone that craft, and when you combine it with kind of the engineering mentality of I'm going to test things, I'm going to prove them out, We're not going to argue about which ad is the best ad. We're going to measure which ad is the best ad. And so, that's really exploded. This is how things are done on the internet. You go to Google and Facebook and Airbnb and Uber and everybody else. I mean, everybody's measuring everything. They just weren't doing that 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, that was kind of the red-headed stepchild. And it's kind of an interesting transition, because really for decades, people knew that there was a much better way to do advertising than Madison Avenue, but the only people with the discipline to do it were basically the mail order guys, and everybody else was just kind of trying to have free lunches and stuff like that. And I've seen a very similar thing happening in biology, where a very sloppy and ill-conceived conception of how life works has kind of been limping along, just like Madison Avenue did for a very long time, and it's getting replaced with something different. And so if you can conceive of how the internet changed all that about 15 years ago, if you want to think of biology as being at the same place now that where the internet was 15 years ago, that would be a very good analogy. And it's actually for many of the exact same reasons. Wow.
That is fascinating to me, because I've heard that a lot of the marketing companies over past years have been very disreputable, not a lot of trust in that field. And it's starting to change. Now things are being measured. When people even come to Savvy, they want to see recordable, understandable reporting. And one of the companies I work for now does just that. They do reporting, identification, and analysis to make sure that the reporting on media sites are valid and accurate. It's never become more necessary to show the public that you're someone that they can trust in, to have it measured.
Exactly. And so what is happening now, of course, measurement is normal in the internet world. And, you can buy clicks and you know exactly how much they cost, and you know how much it costs to get a new customer. Well, what's happening in biology now is that, and this is also very dangerous. Okay. I don't think, the internet is certainly dangerous in certain ways, but it's not dangerous the way editing genomes is.
Wow.
Most people don't know that you can now edit genes as easily as find and replace in Microsoft Word.
Oh no, that's scary. Now, what is the implications of that? What does that mean exactly for anyone listening in?
Well, so it means that there's a lot of people saying, hey, we can cure all these genetic diseases. We could fix Down syndrome. We could have test tube babies. We could fix cystic fibrosis. In any of these genetic diseases, we can get rid of these, or maybe we can program the microorganisms to kill the mosquitoes and end malaria, or maybe you can have a designer baby, or
everything up into the designer baby sounded pretty awesome, actually.
Well, now here's this, and everybody's talking about this, but of course everybody you quickly can see how this could get out of hand.
Yeah.
But I want to bring another element to this discussion that I am not hearing hardly anywhere else.
Where? Okay.
And here's what it is. So I need to give you a little bit of background. So how on earth did an electrical engineer who wrote an Ethernet book and a bunch of marketing books end up writing an evolution book?
Yeah.
And why would you even care? Well, I got dragged in the evolution debate when my younger brother, who was a missionary in China, almost became an atheist. He threw all of his Christian faith out the window, and he was dragging me along with him. And we had this argument that was going on for 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
And this ended up bringing me to science, because I have a very strong science background. And I basically said, you know what, I'm going to let science decide this question for me. And I went down the evolution rabbit hole. And we've all heard the people arguing, right? It was created in 6 days. No, it's millions of years, all that stuff.
Yes.
Well, I said, all right, I'm educated. I can read a scientific paper. I'm going to go figure this out. Well, here's what I found out. Mm-hmm. What I found out was neither of those sides that we always hear arguing is really telling you the whole story. In fact, they were missing the biggest story in the history of science, which is that cells actively in real time cut, splice, edit, rearrange, and re-engineer their DNA.
Wow.
Like on the spot. So you go to the doctor and the doctor says, you got to finish your antibiotics, like finish the bottle to the bottom. You can't stop in the middle, even if you feel better. We've all heard that speech, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, the reason why is because if you don't kill those bugs, they'll become super bugs. Now here's what actually happens.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Here's what actually happens. You've got strep, and strep germs are swimming around. Then you're taking antibiotics and it's killing the strep germs. The strep germs go, hey, if I don't get this poison out of my system, I'm going to die. So how can I pump this poison out? It'll go around. It'll look for another cell that has a pump. It will suck in the DNA from that cell, read the code, find the code that's for the pump, build a pump, insert the code into its DNA, divide off daughter cells that have pumps, and all of a sudden you've got a bunch of bacteria that won't respond to antibiotics, and they start multiplying and they kill you.
Wow.
And this can happen in 30 minutes.
No.
Yes.
No, this is blowing my mind. It almost seems like it's another universe upon itself, that the cells have their own little, like, you know what I mean, universe. Like we have our own way of living and they have their own way, their own life.
And right. And there's no really way of knowing, like, what do they know? What's really going on down there? You know, do they say their prayers at night and brush their teeth and go to bed? Like, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Really. I don't claim to know, but what I do know is that all of those evolutionary steps, resistance to antibiotics or adaptation to cold or heat or starvation or whatever, this is going on all the time, and it's engineered by cells.
Wow.
But and it's all true, and everything I've told you, like basically for 60 or 70 years, the serious biologists have all known this, and it's not controversial. But there's this huge disconnect, because if you go to the bookstore and you buy an evolution book, like by Richard Dawkins or Jerry Coyne or one of these famous guys, they don't tell you that. What they tell you is that all those evolution adaptations are random, accidental, copying errors, and then survival of the fittest just sorts everything out. And so and I'll give you an example of why this is a problem right now. Okay. So there's a book called A Crack in Creation by Jennifer Doudna, and she's one of the pioneers of genome editing. She's at Berkeley. Okay, very famous scientist. She's also now a wealthy scientist. And in this book, she tells this whole story about what they've been doing. Well, on page 4, she says that we know that evolution comes from random mutations and natural selection. And now for the first time, we're going to take control of evolution.
Wow.
And that is wrong, because a bacterium can do more engineering in 12 minutes than a team of Google engineers can do in 12 weeks.
Wow.
But like if you think you're smarter than the cells, but the cells are smarter than you, then you're like the 14-year-old kid with a screwdriver wanting to work on dad's Ferrari. Okay? And you might kill 200,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not a Luddite, and I'm not naive. And I mean, I live around technology every day, and I know that people are going to do this stuff, and you can't stop them. And we're going to have laws and regulations, and there's already laws that you can't mess with human embryos, but people are going to do it. But if you do it with the assumption that we're smarter than the cells, you're going to get a big mistake, and people need to know this.
Wow. This just, it really, really is totally blows my mind. And what do you think? Because, you know, it's interesting. I haven't read cover to cover, Darwin's book, but I had heard that in his book, he talked more about 130 times, to be approximate, that someone said in my show, about harmony and how nature actually works together and not against each other. So science has taken his great work, the theory of evolution, and decided that, okay, this just means survival of the fittest, but they're totally negating the part that actually nature works in harmony with each other and is very complex and doesn't work against each other and, you know, fighting against each other in competition. That's secondary. First is harmony.
You are exactly exactly right. In fact, there was a very now famous biologist named Lynn Margulis, and she was, for a time, she was married to Carl Sagan. That's how most people might connect to her. And she, in 1967, she published this paper, and it was about the theory of symbiogenesis, which is that most of the big evolutionary jumps in history were from cooperative mergers, cells merging together. So think like Starbucks inside of a Marriott hotel, like cell inside of a cell, like a chloroplast, which is the thing that makes plants green, is actually algae living inside of plant cells. That's actually what it is. And so she published this. She tried to publish this theory in 1967, and everybody, the whole entire profession was just stuck on this survival of the fittest paradigm. And they're like, you're crazy. This is all random. This is all accidental. That could never happen. She eventually vindicated herself, and she's now a legend. But I mean, it took her decades to pound her way through. Yeah. And, there was some sexism with it too. I found that women biologists definitely think a little different than the men. We all know women and men think a little differently. And this whole survival of the fittest mentality, it's a very male, Anglo-Saxon, British, American distortion of how nature actually works. In fact, the genome editing technology was actually just stolen from bacteria's ability to resist viruses. Wow. Because bacteria go, hey, what is this? What is this? What is this? And they can read a sequence and go, oh, I know what that is. That's a virus. I inherited resistance to that from my mom, and it will chop that virus up. And it was that exact mechanism that they're using to do the DNA editing. So we had to cooperate with nature just to make this happen.
Wow. It seems to me that some of the cells are smarter than some of us humans here.
Well, technically they are. I mean, I don't know about intellectually smarter, but they're like think of them as little savants that know how to program themselves and reprogram themselves. Like we just don't know. And I think until we learn what they learn, we need to be really, really cautious about what we do.
Yeah. I could see implications for this being very, very dangerous. Now, I'm curious because I've always seen science. When I was a kid, I loved science and philosophy. And I'm now, as I've gotten older and I read a lot. In my 20s, I was really into actually cancer therapies, and 8 people in 1 year died of cancer in my family. So I became very obsessed with understanding cancer, how it works in the body. But I began to realize that science isn't always broad and open as we understand science is all looking at all angles and really trying to get to the truth of things. Sometimes it seems just as like a fundamentalist religion sometimes, that they get stuck on a certain idea and they don't want to open their mind up to anything else.
Well, yeah, cancer is really evolution that's run out of control. It's the ability, just like I described, where cells can re-engineer themselves. It gets out of control. And actually, there's a really interesting thing with a lot of cancer cells is cells, almost all cells have a kill switch. It says if the cell gets copied wrong and we can't fix the data, kill it. Okay. Or like in the womb, when the skin between the fingers, when it gets to a certain growth, it's like a little web. And then a program will say, okay, kill the skin cells in the web. And then the baby is born with the human fingers, not webbed fingers. Okay. So there's like death is actually programmed into the body at all kinds of different levels. Well, cancer cells half the time lack the kill switch. And so now they're just evolving out of control. And then the more sugar you eat and the more carbs you eat and the more all that, it just feeds the cancer, and then the cancer goes out of control. And it's the evolutionary mechanism, but it's a train that's run off the tracks. Yeah. And so once again, you come back to this theme that nature is cooperative. Yes. Nature is very finely engineered, and we have to work with it.
Yes. Now, how did this come about for you in understanding? Because one of the biggest fights between creationists and evolutionists is that creationists were like, how could you possibly think everything that's so minute and perfect came about by random accident, and that there's not a hand behind it? Even a physicist I was talking to a couple of years ago, there's the Big Bang. I said, so what happened before the Big Bang? What caused the bang?
That's
He
right.
said, well, we haven't discovered that. We haven't been able to go back in time to just the moment before the bang. I said, to me, the moment before the bang is God going bam, and then there was light. But
I'm with you. I'm with you. Well, let me tell you a little bit of my story. Okay, so my brother and I were both pastors' kids. So that means we're rowdy and rambunctious, right? And we grew up in the super conservative Christian environment in Nebraska.
Wow.
And I remember when I was 14, the special speaker came and he was talking all about creation and everything. And he came every night for a week. And man, I was already a science geek and I was just eating this up. And he's explaining how the earth is 6,000 years old and all the geology of the earth can be explained by Noah's flood and the carbon dating is wrong. And I'm just eating this up because he's a really good speaker and everything. And well, you fast forward a few years and you start to figure out, hey, wait a minute. That doesn't really make sense. You learn a little bit about geology. You learn, there really were dinosaurs 60 million years ago and all of that. Well, I discovered what you were just talking about, modern cosmology. I discovered, the universe came into existence in an instant in a big bang. And not only that everything about it was fine-tuned to such a phenomenal degree that if the mass of a proton was off by 0.00001%, the universe wouldn't exist. And this said to me, it's like, well, absolutely I believe in God, but I think God is bigger than the conception that guy was trying to give me. And so I changed. I'm like, okay, the universe is old. That's fine. Well, then I came into this evolution debate, and I still, I would have classified myself as a creationist. I mean, I didn't really know, and I didn't really think about it that hard. But when I looked at the hand at the end of my arm, I saw some fabulous in engineering. And so I got in this argument with Brian. He's like, no, all you need is mutations and selection, and you're going to get, you're going to get a hand. That's all you need. I'm like, well, they never taught me that in engineering school. And I went to 5.5 years of electrical engineering school. So is this true or is it not? Well, here's what I found is A, no, it's not true. Those mutations are not random. But B, the evolutionary steps actually do happen because you can reproduce them in the lab. So it's like the atheists were all telling you it's random and accidental.
Okay.
The creationists are all telling you it happened in an instant or it happened 6,000 years ago in a big giant miracle.
Okay.
And what neither one of them is telling you is, hey, wait a minute. The cell is its own engineer. And which to me is just vastly more impressive, than even any idea I had about God before that.
Yeah.
And so basically science, with every step, every year, science speaks of an even more amazing universe than it did the year before. Yes. And the universe gets more amazing and more and more difficult to explain. And no, it's not random and accidental. Like cells militantly guard against copying errors. This is a huge epiphany for me, because in 2002 I wrote an Ethernet book. And then I go down the biology rabbit hole and I find out that the same systems in your Wi-Fi router that make sure that the signal goes to your phone or your computer or your iPad intact also protect cells from copying errors. And we thought we invented this stuff in the 1950s. And actually, nature's been doing it for 3 billion years. And nature does it better than we do. And so the creationists have not told you the truth. The atheists, Darwinists haven't told you the truth. And I said, I got to do something. And the reason I'm in this show is we're now at a point in our society where we're starting to tinker with the Ferrari engine. And I'm saying, well, the tinkering is going to be done. And we do have an obligation to do the best we can. But man, if we don't do it with humility, somebody's going to pay, and it's going to be really ugly. We got to just be real real humble about this.
Yeah. Now, where do you see the worst case scenario going? I'm almost scared to ask.
Well, there's this thing called gene drive, which is not only can you reprogram the genes, you can reprogram the genes to continue to reprogram themselves.
Wow.
Sounds
like Borg technology.
Yes. So the next generation and the next generation and the next generation, like it's doing stuff. Well, I know a lot of computer programmers, and you know what? A third, if not half of all software is testing and testing and testing and testing. You know, they'll sit there and any software engineer that's writing an app or anything, they'll sit there and they'll test it in all these different ways. Well, how are you going to test gene drive of, whatever you came up with that's you're going to try to kill mosquitoes or something? How are you going to test that as thoroughly as you need to, like in a lab? And how long is it going to take you? Like, man, you got to be really careful. And if most trained biologists have been told that evolution is random and accidental and it's just natural selection, well, here's what's going to happen. Yeah. You're going to experience a lot of natural selection, and it's going to be really ugly. Why? Because that's a God you've been worshiping all along, and it was a false God. I mean, we got to be so careful with this stuff. So careful.
Wow. Well, this is a great for anyone listening. What can anyone do to kind of not go in this path? Because not everyone, in fact, most people listening in are business owners. They're not really in the science-related world. How can we begin to protect ourselves against some catastrophe like this?
Well, a good start would be, there's a chapter in my book, Evolution 2.0, and it's called How Smart is a Cell Really? And in the Evolution 2.0 book, I describe what I term a Swiss Army knife. Like, evolution has this bag of tricks, and it's actually not terribly different from what humans do when humans write software, or when we merge companies together, or we, build cars or whatever else. That cells do very similar things, and you can actually understand this stuff. And I think if you read Evolution 2.0, it will just completely open your eyes. Like, oh my goodness, I had no idea how sophisticated nature is. And I think that's the starting point. If we can appreciate what we don't know and appreciate what the unanswered questions are, then we can get somewhere.
I love that, Perry. One thing I love about science, and I realize I've said once to my partner, humans want to have all the answers and say, I got it, I know it all. But it's almost like we're a teeny weeny ant trying to look at the entire universe at once and say that we can get an understanding of it, when the creator, God who created everything, is so much huger than us. We can't possibly get a perspective of the all, because we're so minute compared to the entire all of everything. But I think it's a fascinating ride just to begin to understand bits and pieces and realize that no matter what bits and pieces there's still more to know.
There is more to know. You never run out. And you know what? People, I'll finish by letting you know, I created a technology prize around this for the specific purpose of highlighting the unanswered questions, because what nobody knows is where all that code came from in the first place. And most people don't want to admit, it's like people go, oh, well, God did it. Like, almost like it's a shortcut, right? Or, well, there was a warm pond and a happy chemical accident and a lucky lightning strike, and that's how it happened. Like, well, you don't know. And so at Arizona State University on August 28, I announced a $5 million technology prize with judges from Harvard, Oxford, and MIT. And we're saying, we want to find out how you get the first code. Where does that come from? That would be a huge breakthrough in artificial intelligence, in health, and cancer, and medicine. And if you go to naturalcode.org, you can read all about it. It's the biggest prize on the Hero X site, which has tens of millions of dollars of prizes for all kinds of technological breakthroughs. And, maybe somebody can win it. You can go take a look and see if you can figure it out. Maybe some 14-year-old kid listening to your radio show will solve it. I don't know, but it's a great question.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And where can they find out more about that and get your awesome book, Evolution 2.0?
You can get Evolution 2.0 on Audible or Amazon. It's in hardcover, it's in softcover, it's in Kindle, and you can find out about the Evolution Prize, $5 million, at naturalcode.org.
Ooh, awesome. Well, I just have to thank you again, Perry, for coming to share this very important topic with us today. It just got my brain revved up here to learn even more, which is what I hope everyone will do who's listening in. And I just have to thank you again, Perry, for coming to Savvy Business Radio.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina.
Find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest. Call 732-474-7375 or email Christina at savvybusinessradio.com.